Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another Greyscalegorilla podcast, episode 59, pre-NAB. What's up, guys?
What's up, man?
I got a lot of energy today, if you haven't noticed.
That's right. Nice. Stretch it out.
Get into it. Get into it.
Is that maybe just the nature of us starting a later one than usual? Instead of
Probably
being at like 11 or 10 in the morning?
Well, yeah, because usually we start them after an epic company meeting that can sometimes go for like an hour.
If not longer.
And then we segue into the show, which is kind of like at that time, you like sometimes you just are like, oh my God, how long are we going to do this? But no, today is good. We fresh little break. So yeah, welcome everyone. I hope everybody's week is going well. How's everybody's week going?
So far, so good. We got NAB coming up. I leave. I think we all leave on Friday to head to Vegas, and so I'm putting some last minute touches on my presentation. I'm getting a tutorial ready for next week as well, which will, I think, tie in a little bit with the presentation I'm doing. Yeah, working on some email stuff. It's been good.
Yeah, this is the busiest week of the year so far for me. So that's the way it's gone. Just with NAB, and then we've been having internet trouble, and air conditioner's broken, and it's starting to get warmer outside, and I got all this done before I leave.
Oh no.
And then preparing things for the brothers before the trip starts, and then
packing their lunches and such.
Yeah, more like like certain projects are wrapping up, so it's like, okay, what are they going to be spending their time on?
Yeah, cool. NAB, man. So we're all flying out to NAB on Friday. We're going to be live presenting. You can check out when we're all talking on our website. I think it's one of our latest blog posts. So go check that out. See when we're talking. And also, we're going to be trying to stay on top of posting to Instagram and giving you guys some behind the scenes, really fun stuff of what we're doing at our booth and who we're talking to and who we're hanging out with. And hopefully Chris completely belligerent at a table betting his life savings.
Put it all on red, Chris.
No. I'll be drunk, but I don't go crazy on the gambling.
No, we'll keep you safe.
Well, I tell you, I'm here at the blog post for those of you who say, listen, I listen to your podcast, so I don't have to go to your blog post. Let me tell you when we're on.
I think I've got it up too.
Get out your calendar, because we got 3 days in a row that Greyscalegorilla will be presenting. And we got, so first off, Monday, leading the pack, we got Chris Schmidt, Monday, April 24th. That's at 1:30 p.m. That's Pacific time, by the way.
Pacific, but remember that's screwed me before.
Yeah, so it'll be a little bit later in the day for this stuff if you're on the East Coast like we are. All right, or Central Time. Tuesday, that's me, Nick if you're listening, that's Nick on April 25th, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time.
First presentation of the day.
Oh man,
that's gonna be rough.
Early.
You're gonna have a rough Monday night.
If I'm up late Monday, guys, you gotta let me know. Remind me.
We're gonna get you super drunk on Monday night.
I've done that before. That is not fun. Hey guys, welcome to Grace.
I think my last SIGGRAPH presentation, I was hungover.
It's not fun. I'm going to be bright and wide awake. I got a fun one for you guys on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, we have 2 presentations. Dude, guys, we have 4 presentations at this NAB, at the Maxon booth this year. On Wednesday at 11:30 a.m., Chris and I are going to do a live Ask GSG live in person at NAB. So we're going to answer questions from the audience. We're also going to try to reach out to like our Instagram followers and Twitter and get some Ask GSG questions that we could do live on stage. And then to hit us home, getting the home run ready to bat us all in, Chad Ashley, Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. So if you guys want to learn more about that, you can go to our blog post where we have links to the Instagram and all the stuff we're going to do. Or you could also go to c4dlive.com and you could sign up there and you'll get reminders of when everybody's on and you can see the full presentation schedule there. So hope to see you there.
Better watch because it's going to be fun. And there's a lot of great presenters actually, and I'm excited to go. I'm excited to get into some warm weather. Actually, it hasn't been too bad here, but I am excited to see a bit more of the sun. Hopefully it won't be like 120 degrees.
Nah, it'll be nice. I have a feeling.
Are you guys fly out Friday, and so yeah, what was I going to say? Oh, I mailed out the swag today.
Ooh, I
Swag.
don't think we
I
ever
don't know.
figured that out.
Yeah, we never really resolved that. Anyway, so that'll be there when we get there. And we'll be giving out some nice little gifts to people that come by our GSG booth, which is going to be right behind the Maxon booth if you're going to NAB. We have a booth, and we'll be Chris, Nick, and myself will all be demoing our tools and talking cinema, answering questions, and such.
Yep.
So yeah, that's what's going on with NAB. Let's get into the news. What else do we got in the news? Let me wrestle some papers here to act like we've got some like news going.
I need a green screen behind me that could do some weather over here, maybe. What about you mentioned there might be some new Render Wars news?
Oh yeah. I can't remember. Last podcast had Arnold 5 come out yet?
I want to say it was either coming out I think it was coming out, and then you did the live show later. So we should probably mention the live show that was recorded that Chad did all about Arnold 5. So if you're looking at basically what did you go over? What's new and all the new stuff it does?
Yeah, I kind of did a brain dump of everything that I thought was cool in Arnold 5. As soon as it was released, and I got the okay from the Solid Angle team that I could do a live stream and just kind of show people what's new, I went ahead and did it. It's on our YouTube channel. You can check it out there. It just kind of goes over all my favorite features, and it's a huge release. It's a huge update for them. They've increased the speed across the board of the renderer. Much to people's disappointment, it's not GPU yet. So if you were hoping for Arnold 5 announcement to be, hey, we're GPU too, it's not ready yet. The way I heard it is Arnold 5 needed to come out with a new updated core, all the new features, which there are quite a few of, and then they're going to focus their energy on the GPU implementation after that's shipped. So that's shipped, and I just got an update today that they made a few bug fixes. They had a few things that needed to be tweaked, so they tweaked those right away. There's an update coming. My two favorite things, I gotta say, in there are the triplanar map, which I think I explained maybe on the last show. I can't remember if I did. Did I?
I think that was at the company, or when we were just having a meeting.
Okay,
so personal demo you gave us.
So a triplanar.
Us all looking at each other through webcams is kind of a daily occurrence.
I know.
So it's
sometimes
kind of hard
it bleeds together
to remember what is said when. So thank you, Chris, for that one.
So a triplanar mapping is becoming kind of a new standard in terms of dealing with projection mapping and not having any seams. So it's basically a cubic map with feathered corners. So if you've ever used a cubic map on an object that you didn't want to UV.
And they definitely have, because that's the only thing me and Nick ever recommend.
Right. So you have those situations where you throw a cubic map on it and you're like, oh, damn, I'm seeing a seam where the two projections are meeting. Well, triplanar kind of gives you the opportunity to blend those seams, and it makes a really awesome tool to not have to UV every little thing. It makes it really easy to work with tiling images, grunges, that sort of thing. The other thing that I really love is the jitter node, which allows you to randomize so many different things in your map. So you can randomize hue, you can randomize saturation across objects, clones, instances, whatever, it doesn't care. So what that means is you can have one shader, and let's say you have 10,000 army men cloned in a cloner. Well, 10,000 would probably destroy cinema. So let's just say it's like maybe 800. So you have 800 army men, and they're all the same shade of green. You could actually you could randomly shift their hue by a few degrees to make them all a little different. You could also randomly shift their gamma to make them all a little bit different, all controlled with one shader, which is super, super powerful.
Well, you could also have like a grunge map on them that's randomly offset.
Exactly. In fact, I did a quick test. I think I may have posted it. I don't remember where I posted it, to be honest, but I did a thing where you can actually use the jitter to offset UVs too, because they have a UV node in Arnold. So you can actually create a bunch of different UV offsets so that let's say you have wood, for instance, like wood planks, and you want to randomly offset the tiling wood texture on each plank so they look different. You can do that so easily now. It's crazy. So tons of cool new features. It's much faster. I'm seeing like 20 to 40% speed increases in this new version. So that's new. And as of just a couple hours ago, a toy just released the Cinema 4D update 3.06, which also adds triplanar mapping in its own way. And the other kind of notable features are a lot of fixes, it looks like. They fixed some displacement issues. Adaptive sampling, of course, is added, which I think we talked about before. I haven't had a chance to download this one yet, but it looks to be a pretty significant update. I think a lot of people are stoked about the triplanar mapping, and the token support for Octane passes, I think, is also huge. And in the Redshift camp, they're still cranking along. The alpha's looking good. It's still moving. I'm seeing a lot of people interested in it. I was on Ashthorpe's Learn Squared Twitch a few times last week and this week, and everybody's kind of excited about Redshift because I think there's this whole group of people that just like invested so much money in GPU that they don't want to necessarily go Arnold until Arnold goes GPU. So they're looking at Redshift as a possible replacement for Octane and the feature restrictions that Octane has. So that's Render Wars update. I feel like I'm missing something though. No, I think that's it. I think that's all I had.
Well, that's cool.
I'm sure
Quite a
people
bit,
will let me know if I
Render Wars. I have one more piece of news, unless Chris, you have some.
Nope, I'm good. I had a new tutorial come out today.
Oh well, of course. There we go.
Some basics of Sketch and Tune.
Yeah. So
it's more the things. It's the idea behind it is it's pretty basic stuff. But if you're not familiar with Sketch and Tune, it's kind of a list of all the things I wish I knew about Sketch and Tune before I ever used it. So like why does your scene look different when you're in the picture viewer than when you render? And like why is the material being applied everywhere? Why does it? And then a bunch of stuff about how the lines connect. So.
Nice.
If you're already super familiar, then maybe not super useful. But if you're thinking about getting into it and you're tired of all these different render wars, and just ditch it all and jump right into Sketch and Tune.
Forget all the photorealistic stuff, and let's get into some Sketch and Tune. Back to the cartoons. I like it. Yeah, that went out today, and then yesterday I recorded some questions that a website called Layered Lemonade. They sent a bunch of questions that they said, hey, we would love to know this stuff. We've always wanted to know this stuff about Greyscalegorilla, some things about how it got started, how I started my career. And what they were going to do is translate it. And what they're still going to do is translate it into, I think it's Portuguese, because it's a Brazilian website. So they were going to get my answers back and translate it. So I figured rather than just send it to them to get translated, I put it on YouTube as well, in case anybody else has these questions. So it's kind of part of a series I'm going to try to do more and more, where I get these questions about how to get your career off the ground, a lot of the things that we talk about here on the podcast. And rather than me try to answer them one by one, which can only directly help that one person, I figured I'd rather turn on the camera and try to share it on our YouTube page. So check that out as well. That came out yesterday. So yeah, YouTube staying busy. We're staying busy. NAB. Chris got a new tutorial. Big week already. We're not even in Vegas yet.
I know. Still have so much laundry to do.
Yeah, so much to do.
Now we're getting into the real stuff.
I know. Well, we did have a couple of topics that we wanted to talk about, and Nick, I know you said you had a question that might spark a topic. Did you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna frantically go search for that question now because I lost it in a tab
I'll kill
somewhere.
some time for you.
But here,
yeah.
here's the idea.
Oh, you got it.
Chris, go ahead, man.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was wondering, Nick, you've got those panels behind you.
Mm-hmm.
And but you have them staggered in such a way so you get this perfect red, white, and red. So I went and looked it up, and that's the Peruvian flag.
Wait, you're saying this right here?
Yeah, you got like the Peruvian flag behind you.
There you
Oh,
go.
that's
Via
cool.
your panels.
I'm
I
actually
thought you might be interested in that.
no, I dig that. I'm currently trying to figure out what to do with this room because I've been doing more video stuff. I might kind of redecorate this back wall here to try to spice it up. If you guys notice, the intro of all of the tutorials that I do are facing my computer, and I got my speakers in the background and all that stuff. I think that's fun, but I'm trying to kind of mix things up a little bit, and I think a more plain wall or something might be pretty fun. So I'm hopefully there'll be a new background one of these
I really
days.
like those people who get like a big elaborate shelving system with like just tons of knickknacks of all these things they love. Those are always super fun. I like those a lot.
I might, I don't think there's room, only because I love that idea, by the way, but I don't think there's room because the door that I have is flush with that back wall. So if I open it, it would hit any kind of like shelving.
Oh,
That
you
might
need
work.
a corner shelf. Rotate everything 45 degrees.
Oh, corner shelf. All right,
Corner desk, corner shelf.
let me tell you, I'm getting the hue lights, and I might even get some sort of shade that can drop, so I could turn off the daylight and get some real, nice light without daylight messing it up. Man, we are behind inside baseball today, which I really enjoy. I like that. Here it is. I found it, guys. Question. We got a question here from Samir. Hope I get your name right, buddy. Says, I want to start my own motion design studio. How can I get clients? So this kind of sparked a little bit of a discussion right before we hit record, thinking about what to talk about. I think there's a lot of people that are branching out into freelance, or they're working full-time and figuring out if they want to go start their own studio. And even all the way back to somebody that might be graduating or ready to start their career and deciding whether they go, into a full-time job, into a freelance situation, or start their own studio. Maybe we could talk about some of the pros and cons about these different decisions, and also maybe a little bit about how you would make that decision as an artist. And I know, Chad, you have a lot of history, hiring people, and also, in different positions in the industry. And, we've gone through a little bit of this stuff here. So I thought we might all have a little bit to say about it. Anybody have initial thoughts about this?
Well, the danger is if Chad goes first, we won't have anything to say because he's the expert. He was actively involved with that most recently.
So why don't
That's
Chris,
good.
you
Why don't you guys
I'll
go, and then I'll
Chad will correct us.
I'll just wrap it up, I guess.
Chris, what's your approach to these kind of things?
Well, to the specific question that you read about how to get clients for a studio, even more specifically, I think that is the interesting part of the question. And I actually have a specific follow-up, especially once Chad takes over. But my thought on this, because I run, the Chicago C40 user group, and I get to see a lot of people doing things. I've gotten to see a lot of people transition into freelance. A lot of people go from freelance into full-time jobs, and people starting their own studios. Some very happy, some very happily, and some people seemingly frustrated with it. But I would say that unless you have a really good reason to try and start a studio, just go and do freelance. Like, and my follow-up question to Chad is going to be, what is the technical differences between somebody, like, let's just say one person doing freelance and then turning into a studio as one person doing work as a studio? But I'm going to keep going, but that's where I'm leading here. But my thought is, if you're leaving a company or you're going freelance, let's say you're even at a company and you've got some free time on the weekends and whatnot, start taking on freelance, go to different meetups, start shaking hands. Even if you don't know anybody, even if you're leaving school, start going to meetups, shake hands, show people your portfolio, like hand out business cards, like get involved in all these different things. And there's lots of freelance you can find online just by being involved in different, forums and groups and job postings. So you can just start collecting more work and more work and more work. So you can dive in head first. But if you have a lot of relationships, you can probably do that. You can dive in head first and get a bunch of work and just be working freelance all the time. And kind of generically, my thought would be is everything about freelance just seems more simple. And you just keep doing that and that and that until you have so much work that you're like, I need somebody else to be working on this with me full time. If there's going to be two freelancers, why don't we become a studio? And then we can kind of brand under that. instead of seeming like two separate freelancers. So that's kind of my thoughts generically. Like, don't make a studio. There's so much paperwork involved in like building like some sort of corporation, like even like an LCC or something, or LLC, whatever it's called, limited liability corporation.
There you go.
Like, why go through that headache when you can just go and start getting work and doing work and, you know, getting relationship with these clients? But that's where I start out here.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
that
complicated,
sounds about right? Chad?
I think it's complicated. You know, I think that the question was, what was it again? How do I start a studio?
Originally the question was, you know, how do I start a studio? I just asked them to simplify the question because we don't know. The big thing to understand is it's hard to give exact advice without knowing so much about what somebody wants.
Right.
And maybe this is me taking this step back all the time, but unless we know what his goals are, what his like end goal is, what his monetary like needs are, what his time restrictions are, like
how much risk he can take right now.
Yeah, how much risk you like.
Like, do you have a family? Yeah.
Right. There's so many more questions you need to ask that we don't have, you know, him on a phone call to ask. But these are all some of the bigger questions you have to start asking when you decide if you're going to start your own company. So I mean, I think the default answer would be, you know, it should be screaming out to you to start a company. And like Chris said, and not necessarily go start one from scratch, especially if you're new to something like this. But yeah, Chad, you said it's getting complicated already, but
if you're new, like first of all, nobody should start a studio nobody should start a studio. Okay. I'm just going to say that as a kind of a sensationalist top, you know, headline right there.
That's the headline.
It should be,
People are typing comments out already.
It should happen organically. Meaning that you should spend enough time in the industry and get enough clients and get enough contacts to where a studio makes the most sense for you, because you just can't handle the work yourself. You're getting, or you're frustrated at your studio job and you want to break out. You've got your own clients that would follow you. You want to be your own boss. You have a partner that you work with that you want to start a place with. It should happen organically. Nobody sets out, at least nobody that I know that has been successful, woke up and said, hey, I'm starting a studio today. It doesn't happen like that. Especially because a motion design studio in today's economy does not make money. They're not big money makers. So you're not going to have an easy time finding investors or finding people to give you a dump truck full of money to like start a studio and buy computers and get a space and all that sort of thing. So you see studios happening much more organically now. You have people that their staff at a place for a while, then they realize that maybe they kind of have gone as far as they can at that studio and they decide to go freelance. And then when they go freelance for a number of years, they start to, and let me just clarify freelance in two categories. There's freelance, the person who is booked by a studio and either shows up at that studio and does work for them or works from home for that studio. And then there's freelance independent artist who takes on jobs directly with a client, meaning some client calls them and says, hey, we're doing, okay, cool. Technically you're a contracted, you know, company really, but you're acting
almost
like
a studio at that point.
You're almost a studio at that point anyway. But the biggest difference is you don't have overhead, you don't have employees, your taxes are totally different. So that's the kind of difference. You have to kind of see where you want to be. And most people that end up as independent contractor freelance types, they have spent a good number of years either working at a studio or working freelance and getting all that experience and contacts and understanding what it takes. And then they go off and start doing side projects like Chris was saying for people on the weekends. And that starts to take over their day-to-day life. So again, it happens organically. It doesn't just happen overnight. Just doesn't happen with a loan. It just needs to happen that way, because you're not going to be successful if you don't have the patience and the stick-to-itiveness to put in the time and the effort to make yourself a successful artist, whether you're staff, freelance, or independent contractor, studio, whatever. It takes time to get good and build up a reputation. Now, a close friend of mine just talked to me this morning about his challenges. He went from a studio position for a number of years to freelance to starting his own actual studio. Now, his studio is out of his house. He doesn't have any employees unless he has a big job. He hires people and they help him out and whatnot. But the challenges that you find in that situation are you are the if you do that, you are the person doing the work, you are the person getting the work, you are a person selling the work, and you are the person who has to pay taxes and run the business and do all the stuff nobody wants to do. So these are, just know that going into it. Oh, when I was starting out the business, I was like, someday I'm going to own my own studio. And then slowly but surely, I got to see behind the curtain a little bit more and a little bit more at every place that I went. And I just kind of realized that, like, wow, this is kind of a crappy business to be in.
I don't want a studio.
I don't want a studio. Like, I just want to make stuff and like not worry about payroll and bills and taxes and insurance, because that's the kind of grown-up stuff you're going to have to deal with if you get a studio.
Well, I'll take it from this angle. So I agree with both of you guys. A studio should definitely be like a have to, like it's like a no-brainer by the point you get, by the time you get there, right? So I'll share my little entry into the workforce. I graduated, was digging After Effects, and playing around a little bit in cinema and all this stuff. And my goal at that point was to be a freelancer. I'm like, I'm not going to go work at a place and do whatever they want. I'm going to go freelance and go try to work with MTV and all these cool clients I had in mind. And within a few months, I kind of had a similar situation where I'm like, I, first of all, don't know anything about this industry, like the business side of all this stuff, like what a hold was and what do I do if somebody calls with like a cooler opportunity, but I'm on hold somewhere else. Like, that just means I can't go work on it? Is that really true? Like, and so then I'm on the phone with people and I had no clue about the language. I had no clue about rates. I had no clue about, what net 30 was. Like, I had no idea, because when I was in school, I didn't study any of that stuff. I learned After Effects. Tried to learn design. I tried to learn typography. So my feeling when I got out of school, at least, was I dabbled in freelance long enough to know that what I really wanted to do was sit behind the computer and make stuff, like you said, Chad. So where can I go do that? Well, full-time. Full-time, they'll walk in your office and go, this is what we're making today. It's like the most simple way. Now, what you don't get to do is choose. You don't get to choose what you work on, but you do get a steady stream of work that you could, put your thumbprint on somehow. So I would think of it in that way of like, what do you want to do all day? Do you want to work move your mouse all day? Then that is in a full-time. Do you want to start to, learn about clients and learn about how to talk to clients, learn how to do bids, learn how to bill people, like all those things? If you're interested in the business side of it, you may want to start to go freelance. Because then you have, here's the pros. You get to choose what you work on in more, not
sometimes,
not all the time, but you have more choice. You also sometimes have more freedom to work with the client directly, to know what they want rather than go through the hierarchy at a big full-time place. And then like Chad said, only then will you be freelancing and say, wow, I am getting more work in than I could even do. What if I hired somebody that could help me do it? And now you're in a position to talk more to clients and find more work and, be the creative director. And now you have employees that could get their hands dirty and get their mouse moving. And if that is interesting to you, that should be the only time, I would argue, that you want to start your own company, is if you want to eventually not be on the screen and start to be that part, like start to be the person that goes and finds work and shakes hands and makes deals. If that is the interesting side of the business to you, then you might want to look into that.
Well, I think there's also less studio positions available now than there was 5 years ago. I think lots of studios now are almost kind of preferring the freelance model. There's a running joke, like if any of the agencies or clients knew that all the studios in the US, most of them pull from the same freelance talent pool, that it's just kind of a joke. Like almost every motion design shop has like CDs and art directors, and then all the people that are doing the work, and sometimes more often than not pitching the work, are freelance, and they're all bouncing around from shop to shop. So it's just so ridiculous to me when you think about an ad agency hiring a motion design shop, and they're literally looking at boards that were by the same person that maybe pitched a job a week earlier for a completely different motion design shop. And it's just this incestuous thing that after a while you're like, wow, like there is no, I think a few shops have like ownable talent that that's what they do, like that's their look, that's what they're known for. But I've been a part of so many pitches where freelancers are often the ones that win the job for the motion design shop, that you're just like, wow, this is so crazy. Like if the agency knew that this person, number one, didn't even work for the studio, number two, worked for everybody else all the other days of the week, what would they say? Like, would they care? I don't even know if they would care, I guess, but it's just kind of this weird thing. But yeah, that was a little off topic, but yeah, I think that the idea of being freelance, you just have to be, you have to know that you're going to have to hustle, and you're going to have to be the person who uh, doesn't burn bridges and shows up on time, and all the things that go along with being a successful freelancer, and understanding what a hold is and all these things that, yeah, I mean, the best way to learn that stuff is to go to a meetup and talk to a freelancer and just be like, yeah, so how does this work in this town? Like, what producers should I talk to? And that's the thing too. A lot of people that come out of school, they don't know where to start. And I'll just let you in on something if you don't already know this. Producers are who hire you as a freelancer. So get to know the studio producers, the assistant producers, associate producers. Get to know them and become friendly with them, because they're the ones who's, when the job hits their desk, they're the one who's going to have to be like, how am I going to get this done on this timeline?
Well, let's I kind of want to make sure we tackle two different things. One, I think Chris had a question I want to make sure gets answered, or like a topic to kind of start up. And the other one is, let's say people understand what they're trying to do and they do want to build a business. So maybe at the end we could talk about how to attract clients, if that is the goal, how to get more work. So, but Chris, let's start with your
yeah, my specific question was, and I mean this in a very like, what are the literal things? Like if you are like a independent, if you're a freelancer getting direct client work, what is the difference between that freelancer and starting up like the most basic studio you can, where you're like a legal entity at that point? Like, and what, like, I don't even know if any of us know the answer to this, but like, it just seems like if you're a freelancer, okay, you go and you do all this work, you collect all that information, and you at tax time, you got to maybe figure out some extra paperwork.
Well, are you saying that this person in the two scenarios that you kind of described, is the freelancer getting paid a day rate, or are they getting a project rate? Like they're getting a project fee the way that, a studio might?
Is there even much of a difference between the
It's
two?
a huge difference. Huge difference. So you got somebody that might hire you and say, hey, Chris, can you make this animation for us for, I don't know, I'll make something up, a keyboard. How crazy creative is that?
Yeah,
I just
how
looked
did the
down.
keyboard
How did I come up with that?
creative genius, Chad.
I know, that's why you pay me the big bucks. So so let's say, Chris, we want you to make a keyboard animation, and you're like, okay, cool. And I say, I work for Cherry and I'm going to hire Chris to make this keyboard. Chris, what's your day rate? And Chris says, well, my day rate is $600. And they're saying, great. So why don't you start working on the project, and we'll get you going, and we'll make this awesome. And you're like, awesome. And you're working from home, and you're making your cherry keyboard animation. And by the end of it, maybe you worked 3 weeks. So let's just say
It's a heck of a keyboard.
say a 3-week animation, which is a typical project timeline. So you did everything on it. You're the one-man band on this job. So you charge, what did I say your rate was?
600 a day.
600 a day times 15 days. What's the math on that? Somebody, what is it? So 600 times
Is 9,000.
But you made $9,000, and after taxes, you're probably closer to 7. Okay, so you made $7,000. Now that same project, had it gone to a studio, probably would have cost anywhere between, let's just say it's like I would say it's like between a $40,000 and $100,000 project, depending on the complexity of it. So, of course, for the company, it makes more sense to hire you as a freelancer because they're getting $100,000 worth of work for $9,000, and at the end of the day, they're well, it depends on how they work, but employment taxes and all that is something for a completely different podcast. But yeah, so it makes they're winning with that scenario, and you're losing, because you're doing the same amount of work as any studio would do, only you're not getting paid the same. In fact, you're not even getting paid to cover your expenses, because that rate is something that I would expect to see if I was bringing you in to work on my computers in my space with my electric bills. If you're doing it at home and you're getting paid that rate, then you're really getting screwed, because you have to take into account the cost of your machine, the software, all that costs money. And yeah, so does that answer your question? I kind of feel like
well, I mean, that was a kind of a sub question, but and that is interesting as far as like the different approaches. But let's say you are that freelancer. I'm more talking about like from a paperwork point of view, from like a legal entity point of view. Like as a freelancer, like even as a freelancer, like you're saying that the company could be like, okay, we're charging you for the project, and we're charging you whatever, $10,000, $100,000, whatever it is. Like the freelancer could also potentially contract that out in the same way, like as if they were a studio, but it's just a one-man deal, and they're a freelancer. Like you can just be like, oh, this is a $25,000 project, and I'm going to work on it, and you're going to get it in the end. Or you could do a day rate. And if you're working directly with a client, like often they do want like, hey, what is the budget of this project? Mm-hmm. So like that's a potential way for a freelancer to go. But like now let's talk about the paperwork side of it, like the legal entity. Like it sounds like a nightmare to become a studio as a legal entity and just be a freelancer. And you're like, hey, here's this like generic contract form I pulled off the internet. Like sign this. Here's the amount we've agreed to. One revision and go. Like,
well, this is definitely like a little outside of stuff that I know about directly how freelancers handle this, but in the general kind of like business world, I guess, as I understand it, if you wanted Chris to hire somebody to help you do that animation, that's where things start to get a little tricky, right? So that's where, as a freelancer, if you reached out and said, hey, this job's a little too big for me, let's both get in on it together and we'll charge $25,000 and we'll both do this keyboard animation, that's where you really can't do too many of those without having to become a company. So that's kind of, to get back to Chad's thing, is like, that's when it becomes a no-brainer to say, wow, okay, now this isn't just, this person paying Chris. It's Chris paying another freelancer to come help. And then it's also you paying for lunch, because now you guys are working at your house, and all these things start to come into play. And now legally you have to start looking at that this is a business and not just a sole proprietor kind of situation. So that's how I understand it. And I'm sure there's differences and maybe things have changed over years, but it really comes down to the legals, as far as I understand, the legal ability for you to run that kind of business out of your house without becoming a business.
No, that makes sense.
I think that's a good point. And then also there's the whole tax implication part of it as well, and how once you get that lump sum from this company, are you going to pay 30% of that down, or you kind of have to make this decision where you're like, well, and I don't even have the answer because I'm not a business person, but I recommend anybody that is kind of looking to do these types of larger projects, bringing in help, all this sort of thing, to talk to someone, an accountant or somebody, to set that up so that you're not kind of you're aware of what the tax implications are when you take on a $50,000 job. Uncle Sam wants his cut, and you have to do everything in your power to make sure that, well, he gets the fair cut, but you have to make sure that your business is protected, and that at the end of the tax year you don't owe a ton of money, because you needed that capital right now to pay for upgrades, to pay for a freelancer, to pay your buddy that helped you, and the money is spent before it's even been sent to you. And then you've got nothing left to pay Uncle Sam, and it's complicated, and you have to be ready for that. And that's just not something anybody just jumps into. It's something that just takes time and happens slowly.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm really interested in that gray area, in the not quite a freelancer, but not quite a studio. Like, what does that transition look like? And it does sound like, okay, like if you're a freelancer and you're taking on jobs bigger than you can handle, then you're starting to behave more like a studio. And what's this coming to, like, having?
I would refer.
What if you have to have?
I did it again, Chris. Sorry, buddy. Go ahead.
Sorry, I lost the train of thought now. It's all good.
See, I forced myself in there. What I was going to say was I would refer anybody that has those kind of questions to somebody that is doing it like somebody that's doing it right now, because I think
those are legal questions.
If we were to guess, we're going to give bad advice. And also, I think this stuff changes depending on state rules. There's a lot of different rules on hiring people and when you have to hire people. So, for example, if you tell somebody when they have to work and where they have to work, then they can't be a freelancer. So you have to if you do that more than a certain amount of days per month, then you can't continue to call that person a freelancer. You have to hire them in. And now this is in Illinois. I don't know if different states do it differently, but I can't say, hey, freelancer, I'll just pay you your day rate. Come on in and, hang out.
You have to be here when I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be here when I'm here. And also you have to work on this specific project, and you're going to have to do it for 5 days a week for the whole month. Well, what the state, or I'm not sure if it's state level or not, but what certain organizations will say is, no. You are hiring somebody, which means you have to pay their payroll tax, and it's basically a tax issue. You have to bring them in as want their money. So bring them in as a taxable employee so that they get their taxes every month. So I think those are the things that you really have to look into if your goal is to start a studio. Like, you are becoming a business person, not an artist, right? You are going to end up being more of a business person
if you're going to be successful. Yeah,
absolutely.
Because ultimately artists don't necessarily think about those things, and they get into a situation, they're like, well, I'm doing great work and I'm successful and I'm a good artist, I should have a studio. And it's like, if you had a partner that maybe was business savvy and the two of you complemented each other, great. But if you're going to try to win the work, like I said, and run the business, good luck, because it's hard to grow when you're the bottleneck. It's hard to grow.
I wonder if there's like an allure. I can't say the word. An allure of like the prestige of a studio.
Oh, that's
like I think if that's what it's like. Oh, I'm doing all this amazing work, and then maybe you get your name.
Let me shatter those dreams real quick.
Yeah. Well, but it's like, oh, I want to, I've got my name in the credits for here, but I want that to be a company. I want to be like one of those names up on the screen that's like a title of a company, and that it seems like, I don't know, it's a dangerous motivation to have, like, because of the cost you're paying to get into that category. Like, if you want to be doing the work, then you shouldn't be worrying about that part of the name.
Yeah, if you're doing it for vanity reasons, it's like buying a boat for vanity reasons. Like, you know how much work you're gonna have to do.
You better love boats.
Yeah, you better love, waxing. or have way more money than you can then handle, right? So it's definitely yeah. I know what you mean though, Chris. There are a lot of people I think that have that feeling of, oh well, I love MK12 or I love PSYOP and I love these companies. I want to put my stamp on the world the same way that these big companies that inspired me, I want to build something big and inspire the next group. I think there's a lot of people that do get into it, not necessarily for vanity, but to be a big part of the space, right? And I think everything still applies. Is that alone is not a good reason to start. Having so much dang work that you have to start hiring people is a great reason to look into starting a company, and understanding that you or one of your partners will be a business person and not an artist. I think that's maybe a bigger point to this. You know what? I'll say it out loud. I'm gonna say it live because I think I'm gonna reach out to Chris Doe. I have rumors he's gonna be at NAB, and I'm gonna corner him and say, hey, you know this side of business stuff, because he talks really well about this, and he's really outspoken about making sure people get into business for the right reasons and why, and how to start to do it. So I think we should get him on the podcast. So see, this is my live way of kind of like suckering him into doing it, basically. So I'm gonna try to talk to him at NAB and see if we can get somebody on here that understands a little bit more about this stuff, so that we don't give the wrong answers either.
Right. Yeah. No, I'd love to have him on the show. I pretty much agree with almost everything he says. So I think it'd be interesting to ask him some questions.
Well, that doesn't make for a good conversation. You need people you disagree with. You need
Whatever,
conflict.
dude.
You can't learn if you're agreeing with everybody.
Whatever, man. Don't judge me.
Writing it down. Oh, by the way, let's talk about show notes. If you guys want to not go type anything into Google, because let's face it, that takes too long. You just want to click on it. Head to, if you're watching on YouTube, just look in the description. We're going to put links, including some stuff to Chris Doe, by the way. Can't type and talk at the same time. We're going to put links to that, as well as the blog post for NAB, as well as Chris's tutorial, all the stuff we talk about in every episode. We'll try to link it up down below. So I want to put that in the middle of the podcast here, in case you guys want to.
We're only in the middle of this thing.
I have no idea how long.
I feel like we're towards the end, aren't we?
Oh, we are. Okay, I'm sorry. See, that's that's setting expectations.
I gotta take my shirt off, man. I'm hot.
Do it, man. This is about to go up.
Got my
Turn
GST,
up the heat.
My GST red.
Yeah, man. We got to bring our t-shirts to NAB. Represent. Will it be weird if we all have the same t-shirts on?
I don't know. I kind of have a booth thing going on,
It'd be
so
easy to spot you.
Give me a little
company logo thing. Oh, I got my hoodie too. Did you guys get the Greyscalegorilla hoodie?
Nope.
I did not.
Oh, it's so comfy. It's like one of those.
You have it at the office there?
No, this office is so hot all the time. I wouldn't use it, but it's like it's one of those like inch thick hoodies, And
yeah.
Oh, it's like this thick in the closet. It's so good. Well, that we didn't wrap that up very well, did we? I kind of took it off on a tangent. Yeah, I just keep thinking. I've been listening a lot more to what Chris has been saying about this stuff.
Christo,
thank you. And so I'm gonna reach out and see if we could sucker him into coming on here and saying, yo, business, let's go, hook us up.
I'm
business.
Because
I'm fascinated by like those gray areas, like those transitions, and when does one thing become another? Even like those legalities of like, isn't there a thing like if you're paying for a desk for someone, then like they're an employee?
Yeah, exactly. Those are the things I didn't even understand until I started, building Greyscalegorilla, right? So I have a lot of, things I know about business through a software company and an education company, but I don't want to give out bad information for somebody starting a freelance or a motion graphics studio. I don't know how much of it applies or how much difference it is, but I definitely ran into those things as, Chris and I started working together, and then Chad and Chris's brothers, and every person that came in was a new learning experience about, okay, how many hours and where do they work and what does that mean for paying them. And it was just a whole part of owning a business I didn't even think I needed to learn.
Yeah, and then it starts getting to dental and health insurance and 401k. It's like, oh my God, this isn't what I just wanted the name of the studio in the titles.
Yeah, I just wanted cool business cards with my logo on it. And now you're like, wow, I got to pick out a health plan. So I would approach any of these things not with caution. I definitely want people that are looking at starting a studio and going down that road to, understand what the consequences are. But then, when you're in, jump on it, work hard. So maybe we could leave with maybe one tip to get clients. Those people out there that are like, listen, you guys talk bad about it the whole time. What if we're ready to go? We have a studio and we're looking to, gather more clients, get more work. Any tips for them? And then we can close out. Chad,
tips for getting new clients?
Yeah, I would say they have a studio, they have one or two people, maybe they're even
small studio.
Yeah, small studio out there that's listening to the podcast, and they're like, how to find more of these clients? I want the client.
I think you have to, it's not that much different than anything else. You have to get involved with the local scene. Join organizations that you think are going to attract people that you want to get work from. If you're a small studio and you're going after agency work, then go to agency events, meet agency people, go take agency producers to lunch, figure out who they are, find a sales rep that whose whole job it is to drum up work and take a percentage. Take them out to lunch, figure out who you should be talking to. You may not be ready for a full-time sales rep, but if they're commission-based, maybe they'll take you on and start feeding you potential pitches that you can try to win. The other thing that you can do is make sure you're marketing to the right audience. I think a lot of younger studios make this mistake. They start to market themselves to their peers instead of their potential customers. So you'll see artists that start a studio and they're concerned about posting or to people like us and getting our attention when we're not the people that are going to give them the work. It's the agencies that are going to do that. So figure out ways to speak to that audience. If you want to go, it's a lot harder actually to go from a studio perspective. It's hard to get direct to client work. Now, direct to client work is like I'm being hired directly by Rode Mics or whatever, and they're hiring my studio to create something for them. And then there's direct to agency, which means that you're working with advertising agencies. They're hiring you to do a project. So depending on which way you're going, direct to client's a lot harder to make those contacts because they're not centralized in a location or even in a field that you can go to events for. You have to kind of meet those people organically, word of mouth, that sort of thing. But meeting producers, meeting creative directors, art directors, ad agencies, going to events, talking to other studios, getting involved. These are all things that are going to helpfully get you work. But ultimately, the best thing you can do to get work is to have good work on your reel, on your site, on whatever. The best way to get work is to show the work that you're capable of. And if you can impress the right people, then it starts to become a domino effect where all it takes is a few people to give you a chance. And if you knock it out of the park for them, they'll spread that word. And hopefully, if you're nurturing these relationships, the jobs will come.
I like that one. Chris, any tips, any stuff that you've seen successful at the meetups?
Honestly, like it's all the same stuff. It's the more hands you shake, and it's everything. I mean, like if you're active on Twitter, get active on the public Slack channels, get active on, just shaking hands, going to meetups, like telling, and never be obnoxious. Like you gotta be, but if you go out there and you get a reputation, like there's I get I get asked about doing a lot of freelance work, and I have people I know in the industry in Chicago that I'm just constantly handing jobs off to. I've handed like pretty large projects off to other people where they're like, okay, this is like a quarter of my work for the year now. It's just like, I don't have time to go and tackle those things. So like when you shake hands of different people, depending on where they're at in their career, like any freelancer might be too busy to handle everything. So if you become one of their go-to people, they'll start passing stuff off to you, and then you pass stuff back to them.
It's a relationship business, and if you go into it knowing that, like, you have to be good at relationships with people and you have to be good at your job. And if you can do both of those things at the same time and you're good at them, I think you'll be successful. But it really, you're right, Chris, it's about shaking hands and then having the work and the follow through to keep that reputation strong.
Yeah, none of this stuff means anything if you don't have a good portfolio, if you don't have a good pile of work.
Right. It's always assuming that your work, you could get the job done, you could do good work, you could deliver on your promises. These are all givens in the discussion we have today. I think you guys both wrapped it up really well. Get out there, start shaking hands. And I'll say this, or I'll add this. It is always about a person. This industry is all about other people that know who you are and can either, like Chris said, recommend you to a client or hire you directly. So, you know, I say this to a lot of, you know, business owners that I meet in general. And let me really be clear. Everyone is a business owner, right? Just because you don't have the piece of paper, just because you didn't go register with the state, doesn't mean you shouldn't think about yourself as a business. You need to go find your, just like any business, you need to have a good product. That's you and what you could provide to the marketplace. You have to go find the people to buy your product. And that's basically advertising. How do you get the word out that you can do what you say you can do? And you have to do both things. You have to have a great product, get the word out. So start thinking of yourself as a business, no matter where you are in this hierarchy. And you might be really good at the one part of it, which is the making of it, but you might not be as good at the other side, which you really need, which is the meeting people that could pay you to do what you do. So it may be time, you know, if that resonates with you, to step out, go shake a hand, go meet some people. I think we did it, guys.
I think is that
that's it.
That's a good way to wrap it up. You want to take us out, or should I?
Chad, you got the big red button over there, man, and the big red t-shirt. I think you're looking good. Your lighting's way better than mine today too, so I think you should rock it.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. As always, if you like what you're hearing on iTunes, give us a review. Tell us what you think. We love to hear from you. Ask us a question. Give us an idea of another possible topic. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like if you're liking what you're hearing or seeing, hopefully both. And as always, we've got show notes for everything that we discussed. And yeah, we'll see you at NAB next week on Instagram and C4D Live. So we'll see you then, everybody. Have a great week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.